Mesdames et messieurs, ladies and gentlemen, Karl Petter Thorvaldsson, thank you for those wonderful words. I have to start by saying that I am truly honored that you have welcomed me to your Congress. And I am honored because I believe that we share the same cause, a cause where we believe that all European citizens should look into the future knowing that it will be better, where economic prosperity and growth are just as important as social equality and equal opportunities. And in many ways, our home, Europe, has become the symbol of this, because history has taught us that peaceful ways and cooperation paved the way to stability and a better standard and living. And that's because we have chosen democracy over totalitarianism. We have chosen freedom over borders. And we have chosen solidarity over hatred. Yet I believe, given your discussion here today, that many Europeans feel, where is the world and Europe heading towards? Because many people are coming to our home, Europe, and they're pledging for help because what they had no longer is. And we, the current citizens and governments of Europe, are pondering what are we going to do to solve this situation, and what is going to happen to all these people that are arriving to Europe right here and right now. And in the midst of this, I'm confident that with the right set of moral values, where we choose to help people, combining this with the right political policies that give social cohesion, our continent, Europe, will continue its path of post-war success. And you may ask yourself, why am I so confident about this? Well, in all its simplicity, exactly as Mr. Thorvaldsson said here, I know this because I have experienced it. Today I'm standing in front of you as one of the members of the Swedish government, one of the ministers responsible for education which was my key to a better life. But once upon a time, my life started with war, death, refugee camps, and a lot of loss. And my friends, what was this loss? Well, it was the loss of a home. It was the loss of family members and relatives. And it was a loss of almost my own life. But I survived when so many others people didn't, which probably was just a strike of chance. And that very feeling of knowing that I survived when so many others people didn't, that very feeling is shared by 60 million refugees around the globe at this current time and age. And I want to take you down my lane of memory for a moment. I was born in the city of Foča, a middle-sized Bosnian Yugoslavian city by the river Drina, southeast of Sarajevo. And Drina, with its green-colored waters, would later be called the river of blood. And in my memories, I am 5 years old. I'm walking down a bridge with my uncle, and it's spring, and I'm eating ice cream, as so many children do now as well. And all of a sudden, we meet a man crossing the bridge, coming towards us, and he tells my uncle, "Have you heard about what's happening in Croatia? A war seems to be coming." Whereupon my uncle replies, "I know, I've heard about it, but I don't believe it will happen here. It can happen in our societies." And I remember standing there as the 5-year-old me thinking, what's a war? What is Croatia? And what is here? But then I thought, if the adults say everything is fine, then everything must be fine. But of course, everything wasn't fine. Because all of a sudden, in my memory, there were soldiers on the streets. My parents were talking about escaping, but we couldn't because we were locked up in our apartment and couldn't go anywhere because moving restrictions were on. And the blinders were always on as well, shadowing the windows, and we slept on the floor in order to avoid gunshots. And in the midst of that, I remember that my parents were reading to me book after book, and I was thinking that I'm afraid. But I also felt happy because all of a sudden I had my parents to myself because they had been too busy working before, the lawyer and the economist who all of a sudden had so much time for me. And I don't know how long we stay like that, but I know that the deadlock was broken one day when it knocked on the door like this. And a soldier came in with the long beard and weapons all over himself. And he shouted, pointing his gun at us, telling us, "Give me everything you have of value, pack your bags, and be very grateful that I won't kill you right here and right now." And then he started throwing things around, searching through our drawers while my parents were packing in panic. And then we were off. For the last time, passing the threshold of what was our home. And then through a chain of circumstances, we ended up in Sweden. And I remember us literally arriving to a safe haven, to a port in the south of the country, a late and rainy night. And I was in a tent. And I remember the rain beating against the tent walls while we were placed in it for shelter. And I know that for the first time in a very long time, I could sleep. And I hadn't slept for months. And as I look back at these recollections and the history of thousands and thousands of people who've experienced related or even worse fate. When I look back at this, my fate almost seems too easy. I come think about the title of the novel written by the Nigerian Nobel laureate Chinua Achebe, As Things Fall Apart. Yugoslavia, the country that in 1984 hosted the Olympic Games in Sarajevo, 7 years later, faced a total war and the worst crimes against humanity since the Second World War, in the middle of Europe. And that's what happens when the wrong powers get the grip of a society. It falls apart. And when journalists nowadays ask me, why did you get politically involved? My answer is simple. And it is that I know that I have come face to face and eye to eye with evil. And evil is nationalism. But I have also, my friends, seen the best of humankind ever since the day I arrived to Sweden, when this little country opened up its doors to us, to me, my family, and so many others, and first and foremost by giving us a shelter, a physical place to stay, and then continuing that line of humanity, solidarity, by giving us a chance to a brand new life, which I and so many others are so deeply, deeply grateful for. But by believing in me and my value as a human being, Sweden not only gave me essentials such as a free and universal right to education from kindergarten up to the university level, Sweden also gave me a key to a better life. And it taught me, and hopefully it will teach others as well, that strong and prosperous societies are created by all of us together, irrespective of our backgrounds or what names we carry. The important thing is that we invest in each other, and when we invest in each other, we also give back. And in '92, when Sweden welcomed over 82,000 refugees, many from Bosnia and other parts of Yugoslavia, it was during a time of hardship. The unemployment rates were massive. The economy was in a state of crisis, devastating the country. And despite of that, the Swedish people said, welcome. And it's that solidarity, defying acts and statements that are cynic, that make me love my new home country so very much and so deeply. And it also makes you want to give back tenfold of what was once given to me. And that's why I'm politically involved, knowing what needs to be done to change the world for better. And how is Sweden doing today? 20 years since welcoming so many refugees during a time of crisis. Well, our country has grown into one of the richest, most prosperous economies in Europe and in the world. And we have financial stability and growth, while we also were able to save the lives of so many people. These two were not mutually exclusive, since it was a matter of building a model where each and every citizen mattered. and that has increased our productivity, it made our economy and standard of living better. I will lastly, as my message to all of you here, say that if Sweden was able to do this little country in the north of Europe, during some of its darkest times in the beginning of the 90s, turning all of this to something better, then I'm convinced that we can do it again, especially if we do it together, hand in hand, together all over Europe. Thank you. Thank you.
Muchas gracias.